Hey heroes, welcome to the RedDoor Hero podcast where we discuss the real estate industry hustle with experts and agents just like you. I'm your host, Ali Makhani, with my partner here, Heather Harmon.
Hello.
Hello. Today we have Bianca Campos with Coldwell Bankers in Sacramento joining us as our guest. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Very
Bianca.
excited to be here.
Yeah,
We're
thank you.
excited you're here.
Yeah, thank you for taking time. This is our third podcast, so it's exciting. We're learning a lot, and we love to ask you some questions.
I'm here for it. I'm an open book.
There you go. So my understanding is that you're a relatively new agent. Is that right?
Yeah, and Sacramento resident overall. I'm originally from the Bay Area and relocated about 3 years ago.
Okay.
So
Why an agent?
I ask myself the same question. It's just something that I've always been passionate about. Real estate has caught my eye as a child. We made multiple moves. Growing up, spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and she was fascinated with going into homes and looking at the staging. My mother had a boyfriend who was a broker, so it just always made its way into my life some way or another. And in college, I declared it a major, but ultimately decided that I wanted to broaden the study a bit and ended up choosing marketing and entrepreneurship.
Which really overlap.
Right.
Yeah.
So I figured it would be useful, but just worked on getting my license in college separately, and it kind of stuck with me.
So when did you actually become a real estate agent?
It's an interesting timeline.
Okay.
So after college, once I got my license, I did join a brokerage in San Francisco, Vanguard Properties. And I was at their Market Street location, and it was a lot trying to sell $1 million properties. I was still living at home with my mom at the time, and I was still studying at Cal State East Bay in Hayward. And so after a year of really trying to make my way there, my mom was like, you need a job with a salary. So I put it on pause, finished getting my degree. I ended up working as a business analyst for a few years. And then when I relocated to Sacramento, I picked it back up. And so I would say the last 3 years is when I really started full-time.
Okay. Very good. So your background, your obviously your educational background from business and marketing, really, like Heather mentioned at the beginning, is like it's very what a real estate agent needs to be, right? A good business person, and
Right.
also someone who's able to market themselves, market their product, market their clients, right? So what makes you special?
I've always been really gifted at connecting with people, and I think ultimately that's what sets me apart. Especially today, we have a pretty good way of gauging who's authentic and who's kind of just reading the script. And I try to be really just authentic and honest with people. Also, I think that when you look at realtors, they kind of have this look, and I don't see that I fit into that look. So I think I catch a lot of people's attention because I don't really fit the mold. So I think it's a little bit of just being true to who I naturally am, and being consistent and showing up every day and not giving up. And if you do something enough, it pays off.
Well, being true to yourself and authentic, is words that we use a lot, and it resonates with us, and I think that's a winning formula when you are able to do that, and then add on top of it like a passion to it, then it just becomes
Right.
A monster by itself, right?
Right.
And I think I remember the first time I met you, at one of our open houses, and I mean, just the way you were describing yourself, describing, how you envision the industry, or how you want to, be recognized in the industry, not only gave me that passion that came through, but also, I learned about, why you're doing what you're doing. So that's great. So I would, I find that as a young professional in an industry that has actually been dominated with very much of a old school, things have been done the similar way, but things are changing, right?
Definitely.
So you're coming into this in where the market is driving the change for the industry, right?
Right.
What do you think is the kind of the crossroad between the traditional way of dealing with your client and where technology is impacting that relationship? Love to hear your thought on it.
The crossroad. So I think more than ever, I'm feeling that technology is really important to the clients, but at the same time, it's important for the agents to not get lazy. So I think it's the art of holding the traditional values of real estate and being an agent and protecting your clients and doing your best in representing them and carrying out your fiduciary duty to represent them in either the sale or purchase of a property, but also leveraging the real estate technology that's available to us, but not letting it completely take over and still having a lot of ownership of that client experience. And I think that's something that we're kind of working out right now. So I don't know if that answers your question.
I'm just trying to understand how do you see the balancing act, right? And that's you just said it, that sometimes technology is looked at as, oh, it's gonna just do it for me,
right?
But that's not the end of how you should deal with your consumer, right? So and in the conversation it's about us understanding the world that you're living in, and we want to learn from you, and the audience wants to learn to go, well, how do you see this as happening? Why are you doing what you're doing, and is it helping or not helping, right? So I wouldn't say it's a right or wrong or answering the question. It's more about learning about your experience, which is key to the success of anyone that's inside of the industry that we're in.
Well, I guess then I would add that when I look at the past 3 years and kind of what a big shift was for me was having an online presence, and specifically Yelp. Yelp catapulted my business in 2019.
Wow.
And so that's one piece of technology that I can directly look at and say it significantly changed my business.
Why do you think that is?
Well,
specifically to Yelp.
So I started reading a book yesterday about the importance of having a story to your brand and the importance of messaging. And I was thinking about Yelp because it really is a platform that is about community dialogue. And this book was saying that it's really important to make the customers your hero. It's not about you. It's not about your story. Customers care about their story. And so Yelp is the perfect platform to highlight each customer's story. So when I was reading that book, it was making sense to me, like, the dialogue that people are having on a platform like Yelp is exactly the kind of stories that future customers want to hear, so long as you have good ratings.
Right.
But I think that's really important. And another big part of technology is just really allowing voices to be heard. It's kind of a double-edged sword at times, but when properly cared for and managed, there's a huge opportunity there to help spread messaging and leverage your customers' stories as well.
So was that an intentional strategy on your part when you started using Yelp as a way to get feedback from your buyers, or was it something else?
So in the beginning of the year, I knew that I needed to gain an online presence because in the beginning half of the year of 2019, I made it a focus to do as many open houses as possible. And then I started noticing that at the time I was on a team with Keller Williams, and the information on my Yelp page was just the website for that specific team. So I was noticing an uptick in like traffic, and I was like, I'm curious if, people are going to try to find information out about me, that they're meeting me on the weekends and we're having great dialogue, but it's natural to want to go online and try and find more information about, who you're potentially going to be working with. And it kind of organically happened. Mm-hmm. So I identified that having an online presence was important, but I wasn't sure how to do it. And then I turned to Yelp to do it. Versus I'm not a big Facebook user. LinkedIn is great, but I didn't see the opportunity to really capture, leads on there. And when I asked around to other colleagues about their opinion of Yelp, mm-hmm. most were scared. Most were saying, be very careful about that, because I hear it's really difficult if there's any negative feedback to get that taken off. And then I just decided to go against the grain and open up make that my platform, and it did pay off.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think you looked at you looked at the indicators, and then you then use those indicators to tell you, hey, something is working. I'm gonna just take the next leap and try to make that your own, right? I think that's really good.
I think it's also really courageous to take on Yelp, because it is an industry known platform that comes with a lot of inherent risk. But also, I think there's a certain segment of agents that are just doing the right things. And if you're doing the right things and you put yourself in that opportunity to let your customers or clients reflect back to you the right things that you did, it should work out. And you leveraged that risk really well. So that is a success story for Yelp out of the real estate industry that I've not heard very many of them, but also means you're positioned there in a way that's unique, because there aren't a lot of agents there that are letting themselves be showcased in that way. So probably really good things coming for you in 2020 if you keep leveraging that platform. Based on my experience studying other industries, leveraging Yelp, you should, I think, be really successful with it this year.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, it shows me that you are confident about what you do, or at least when you do something, you're pretty confident in yourself, which is great.
I'm very careful, I'm very calculated, and I just, I don't ever want to be in a position where I have someone who's angry enough to want to publish something about me negatively, knowing the impact. So I think it's just about trusting in your work ethic and trusting in the communication that you have with your clients.
Oh, well, that's it. Yeah. Now I'm just going to keep using words. Now that's dedication. That's awesome. Well, Yelp to me is a platform that has worked for the service industry really well, right? I mean, I don't think that certain services and technology would not exist if Yelp wasn't there. Yelp opened up the door for people to think differently, right?
Absolutely.
And it started creating the snowball effect that, if I read someone else's take on a particular service, I may find that I want to use that service. I mean, that's a shift in the way for people to attract new opportunities. So
I really just thought about how I choose to work with people, how I originally it was primarily for restaurants, and then it just kind of evolved into all kind of industries. Mm-hmm. And I don't really do anything without going on Yelp. literally anything. And so even around the time that I was building my profile, I happened to notice that they had made changes on their platform to have these like icons for certain industries. And there were 6 of those icons at the time, one of which right on top was a for sale sign for realtors. And so it was kind of like the perfect timing. I didn't coordinate with Yelp on this. It was just, I noticed this icon, and I was like, this is going to be something that people are going to begin to click on. So yeah, little strategy, I guess.
Yeah.
So confident, calculated, that's really good. That's the name of the game. You have to find a way that make things work for you to be able to kind of position yourself in an industry.
Definitely.
So going down the path, the technology, what do you think the market is what's happening in the marketplace when technology is trying to impact the way a business has been done for a long time, right? So, there's a lot of new tech that's coming in. Some you may be using it, some may you looked at it, but love to hear your take of how do you see technology impacting our industry?
Well, I think there's a huge opportunity specific to the real estate industry, just because I feel like we're having a lot of the same conversations with clients over and over and over again. And so leveraging technology to kind of implement process and systems where there's content that can be accessed at any point in time for your client is really important for both the agent and the client. It saves time for the agent, and it allows the client to consume that information on their own terms. So that's one area where, for me, I'm really trying to build a system like that, whether it be using a website and having a portal that clients can log into and seeing videos and just kind of going over we have these same conversations over and over, and things may change slightly between each situation, but there's a lot of the same information that gets delivered time and time again. And then, like, for example, with disclosures, I think there's a huge opportunity for technology to help walk clients through disclosures. Virtual tours are really going to become important. So and there's the right and wrong way to use technology. It's not something you can just push on to. You have to understand it yourself. You have to make sure that it's something that makes sense, that's user friendly. And I think, like I said, we're kind of in the process as agents and as an industry figuring out how to best present that to our clients and not overwhelm them.
Understood.
Absolutely.
So how do you go about, again, using technology, and I guess the topic of the conversation here is like, how do you see it, impacting? How do you use technology yourself, in a way to help you organize your day, organize your engagement, or even move things forward? What do you use? How do you use it, and maybe why?
It's become such a part of our lives. It's interesting to even take a step back and look at how we're using it. But I would say, obviously, communication is most important to me. So Follow Up Boss is a CRM that I like to leverage to kind of organize clients and emails and text messages. I mean, there's just a ton of information coming from all different angles, and that's a really good CRM that I like to use to stay organized. A lot of my business is with buyers, and I think that portion of my clients, it's even more complicated because we're trying to find properties as they hit the market. I rely heavily on the MLS, although I am eager for something else to come, something to make it a little bit more user friendly, because when I send the MLS to clients, and I am relying on that auto search, because I can't just sit and look at a map 24/7 and refresh the page to see what's new. So currently using MLS, but looking for something maybe a little bit more user-friendly that the clients are more receptive to. And let's see what else. I think with Coldwell Banker, one of the reasons why I chose to align with them was because on the listing side of things, they have such a nice suite that they offer their agents for their listings specifically, which it is a form of technology where once I've sat down with the client and they've decided they want me to list their home, I then am able to pass that on to the suite service that Coldwell offers, and they just generate photography, postcards, just listed, just sold. It completely takes all of that work away from me. So I think those are the three that stand out to me the most.
How do you look at the value of each piece of technology that you use in regards to directly impacting the opportunities that are creating for you? How do you judge that technology versus the value that they're giving you?
Well, it really is the client feedback that I rely on to tell, if I send them, I've, for example, with the buyers and looking for technology to help with them finding properties and us communicating about specific properties they're interested in. If they're not using it, it tells me it doesn't resonate with them, and then after enough times of recommending something and then it not sticking, it kind of, to me, has proven it's not something that's valuable enough for me to recommend. Right. So it's really about the client feedback and what they're willing to use and what they feel comfortable using.
Right. So obviously empowering the customer is key, right? So in everything that we do, it has to be that there's a reason we do it, because we think there's a productivity gain or better way of engagement, but is it really a value to that customer? And if we find that value for that customer, it really takes that that relationship to a different level, right?
Absolutely.
So that's really cool. So today, when you talk to in our industry, when you talk to the professionals in our industry, they want to categorize their clients, because they use technology as millennials, we don't look at millennials. We look at people within the segment that use particular type of technology. Mm-hmm. You're a millennial, right?
Yeah.
So what does your demographic want? How do they want to be interacted with? What is it that they desire to have when it comes to this relationship with their agents or with their mortgage person? You could speak to them because you're one of them, right? So what is that?
Well, I think that what's most important is convenience and allowing to do things on our own term. I feel like we're pretty self-aware, sensitive people, and it's important that whatever the technology being presented is a technology that respects the client's privacy, the client's time, the language that's we're looking at everything. We're looking at the copy, the text, and just so long as it's convenient, it's simple, and it's clear, I think that's what's most important. So, for example, when I learned that RedDoor had an app that only required it's 4 pieces of information. I mean, that is very exciting, and I think that is exactly it's just simple, and the information that you put in, it's going to give you so much more in return. All of the back end work being done by you guys with just 4 pieces of information, that's going to resonate well. That's going to be appreciated. Applications are like people's least favorite thing to do. So I think that's a good example of just technology that's simple, that doesn't require a whole lot, but then produces a ton for the user. That's a great recipe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in all of the experience of you understanding what RedDoor's doing today, what do you think is the change for you in your business?
Well,
or the most valuable?
I think the most one thing that I learned is that your team, as an agent, building your team is so important, and you're not going to be able to do it all for your client. You're going to have to outsource, and that comes from lenders, home inspectors, appraisers, all of your contractors, and putting that team together and making sure that those members of your team are aligned correctly with you is huge. And I think that is what I'm most appreciative of RedDoor, is that I can confidently say that, you guys are really working on some groundbreaking technology that is going to greatly benefit the consumer, and the intentions are good. And not only the intentions, but the results. So I think just knowing that I'm aligning with a company like that is major. And I'm not hearing of any other companies that are on that level right now. So it's kind of this perfect time to use and leverage RedDoor as a competitive advantage. I was sad you guys were having open houses. You got to keep it.
Well, we appreciate, and I think we put a lot of thought and effort into what we're building. And when we meet agents that see the value, right? Because for us can we enable that consumer? We're all here because of that, right? And we heard it from you. And that's the kind of like how we look at things. That is, can we enable the customer to do what they want to do on their term, based on
their
convenience, right? Yeah. And be able to support them. And when we, as professionals, are needed, we're there to help them, right? So I think that's key. This conversation wasn't about to bring up RedDoor, but I think we appreciate you doing that. But bottom line is that technology should help enable, move things forward.
Right.
It shouldn't be just a piece of software that sits on your phone or your desktop, right? Then that's that's waste, right? So I think it's important for us to find what works, what makes our customers happy, what makes them to move their decision making forward. And I think if we find that, adoption is easy. So, perfect. Well, this conversation is just getting started, but the 30-minute time limit is up. We would love to have you back and talk more about that environment when it comes to enabling the customer and how you do it and how you think through it. Because I think that's the part that people are interested and would love to share that with you. So. Any last questions you may have, Heather?
No, I think here's to 2020. I can't wait to see what you do this year, Bianca.
Thank you so much. Well, you guys will be a part of it, so I'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
All right.
It's very nice to see you, and thank you for making time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.